interesting times. Today's stories. The United Nations says 15 civilians are dead in strikes on minibuses in Yemen's Hodeida. Zombie storm Leslie wreaks havoc in Portugal. Nepal rescuers retrieve bodies of 9 climbers. President Trump is pessimistic on Khashoggi's fate. Over 2,000 Hondurans begin exodus to the US, risking their lives. Plus, rock and roll star Ritchie Valens is remembered with a memorial highway. Hello everyone, I'm Ace Ramirez, bringing you stories from around the globe. And this is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. A United Nations agency said Sunday at least 15 civilians were killed in attacks on minibuses in Yemen's embattled Hodeida province as Houthi rebels blamed airstrikes by the Saudi-led coalition. The Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs did not specify the type of strike Saturday in the Jabal Ras district, but Yemeni rebels said they were air raids by the coalition fighting alongside the government. The United Nations agency said at least 20 more civilians were injured in what Lisa Grande, the world body's humanitarian coordinator for Yemen, termed a horrific incident. The Norwegian Refugee Council condemned an unacceptable pattern of attacks on civilian women, men, and children by parties to the conflict who profess concern for the interests and welfare of Yemeni people. Saudi Arabia and its allies intervened in Yemen in 2015 to support President Abdrabbuh Mansur Hadi's government after the Iran-aligned Houthis ousted it from the capital Sana'a and swathes of the country's north. The coalition has used air power to oust the rebels from much of the country's south, but the Houthis have held on to Sana'a and the key Red Sea port of the Hodeida. Following the collapse of United Nations backed talks in September, the coalition announced it was relaunching an assault of Hodeida city and its Red Sea port. The fighting has since eased and the coalition has focused its raids on the city limits and other parts of the surrounding province. Coalition airstrikes last week killed 79 Houthi rebel fighters and 7 civilians in Hodeida province. The coalition has drawn heavy United Nations criticism for the high civilian death toll from its campaign in Yemen. Yemen's war has left almost 10,000 people dead, mostly civilians, since the coalition intervened in 2015 and sparked what the United Nations has labeled the world's worst humanitarian crisis. Rescue services pick up fallen trees or roofs damaged by the Leslie storm that is battering Portugal. The hurricane that had been wandering the Atlantic Ocean since September 23 turned into a post-tropical storm when it arrived on the Portuguese coast in the early hours. Authorities said violent storms hit Portugal early on Sunday, leaving hundreds of thousands of people without power before carrying heavy rain on into Spain. Civil Defense Commander Luis Belo Costa said Leslie, which was a Category 1 hurricane but weakened to a post-tropical storm as it made landfall late Saturday, left 28 people with minor injuries. The region around the capital Lisbon and the center of the country at Coimbra and Leiria were worst hit with trees uprooted, cars and houses damaged, and local flooding reported. Aveiro, Viseu, and Porto in the north also suffered damage, with rescue services reporting a total of 2,500 incidents. The Civil Defense Services said 324,000 people were left without electricity, while more than 60 people had to leave their damaged homes and flee to safety. Power was being restored across the north and center of the country during the morning. Leslie was dubbed a zombie hurricane as it first formed on September 23, only to meander through the Atlantic Ocean for weeks before making landfall. There were fears it could be the worst storm to hit the region in more than 150 years, but it weakened to a post-tropical storm before reaching the Portuguese coastline. More than 2 dozen flights were cancelled in or out of Lisbon. At Mialhada in Aveiro district, the roof blew off an indoor sports stadium, putting an end to the European final of the women's roller hockey competition. Portuguese authorities had urged those living by the coast to batten down the hatches and stay indoors, while telling fishermen to return to the nearest port. Only 5 hurricanes have ever arrived in this region of the Atlantic Ocean, and it had been feared Leslie could turn out to be the most powerful storm to hit Portugal since 1842. Over the past 176 years, only Hurricane Vince has made landfall on the Iberian Peninsula, hitting southern Spain in 2005, according to weather records. In October 2017, strong winds from passing Hurricane Ophelia fed forest fires that killed around 40 people during a heat wave. Ophelia then made landfall in Ireland as a violent storm, killing 3 people. On Tuesday, intense rain sparked flash floods in the Spanish holiday island of Majorca, killing 12 people. Up next, Nepal rescuers retrieve bodies of 9 climbers. President Trump is pessimistic on Khashoggi's fate. Over 2,000 Hondurans begin exodus to the U.S., risking their lives. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. Welcome back. You're watching Eagle News, Washington, D.C. The bodies of 9 climbers killed on Nepal's Mount Gurha were retrieved Sunday as rescuers tried to piece together what led to the freak accident, the deadliest to hit the Himalayan nation's mountaineering industry in recent years. Rescuers found the bodies of the South Korean climbing expedition scattered across the base camp amid the broken remains of their tents and equipment. The team had injuries including head wounds and broken bones, consistent with being hit by strong winds, but rescuers say it most likely was caused by the powerful downblast from an avalanche, not a storm. Rescuer Suraj Podial, who reached the site Sunday, said, and I quote, "It seems that seracs, or glacial ice, and snow fell from high on the mountain, and the strong gusts of winds from that hit the campsite, throwing the climbers off." The remote camp at around 3,500 meters was located next to a gully that acted as a funnel for the mass of snow, ice, and rocks brought down by the avalanche, creating a powerful kickback of wind that decimated the team. Podial said, "The terrain is very challenging. It was a difficult process to retrieve the bodies. It took a helicopter several trips to bring the bodies, 5 South Koreans and 4 Nepalese, down from the camp in the Dholagiri mountain range of Nepal's Annapurna region. The accident is believed to have happened either late Thursday or Friday, but there are no surviving witnesses. Relatives and friends broke down in tears as the bodies were carried out from the choppers after they landed outside a hospital in Kathmandu." Dan Richards of Global Rescue, a U.S.-based emergency assistance group that helped with the retrieval effort, said, and I quote, "There needs to be an investigation. My hope is that more information will come to light over the next day or 2 as the remains are collected and analyzed." The alarm was raised only on Saturday morning when the team had not been in contact for over 24 hours, said Wangchu Sherpa. Wangchu Sherpa of Trekking Camp Nepal, was the one who organized the expedition. A helicopter was sent to investigate and spotted the bodies, but strong winds prevented the rescue team from retrieving the dead. U.S. President Donald Trump is pessimistic about the fate of missing Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi, saying Saturday that it is not looking too good and he may have been killed. Khashoggi, a Washington Post contributor and U.S. permanent resident, whose writings have been critical of powerful Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, has been missing since entering the country's consulate in Istanbul, Turkey on October 2nd.
Actually, Phil, no. It's a total coincidence. It's interesting. A lot of things happening in a certain part of the world. You know that. You know what else is going on. But there are probably things beyond that. But no, it's a strict coincidence, Phil. I mean, I'd love to have her great news where it wouldn't even be necessary. But at this point, it's looking like he perhaps won't be or isn't around, and that's very sad. I think we would have known by now. That was our first hope. Our first hope was that he was not killed, but maybe that's not looking too good, right? And again, I do have to say, it's not an easy situation for Turkey either. They had a lot of difficult situations going on, and I do want to thank President Erdogan for making this possible. Well, we were very tough on Turkey, and we'll take a look. There was absolutely no deal made. Frankly, the only deal, if you can call it a deal, is a psychological one. We feel much different about Turkey today than we did yesterday. I will be also calling King Salman of Saudi Arabia, because I think it's appropriate for me to ask him what is going on.
Turkish officials have said they believe Khashoggi was killed inside the consulate, and lurid claims have been leaked to media that he was tortured and even dismembered, but Saudi Arabia insists he left the building safely. The outcry surrounding his disappearance threatens to not just harm brittle Turkey-Saudi relations, but also alarm the kingdom's supporters in the West and tarnish the reform drive spearheaded by the Crown Prince. Over 2,000 Hondurans leave for the United States in search of better living conditions and to flee violence and instability in their home country.
Pues que aquí hay mucha escasez y mucha delincuencia y no, ya no se puede vivir aquí.
El año pasado fui a solicitar visa y no me dieron, me la negaron. Entonces ahora aprovecho esta oportunidad para ver si los puedo ver.
Coming up, rock and roll star Ritchie Valens is remembered with a memorial highway. Eagle News, Washington, D.C. will return shortly. This is Eagle News, Washington, D.C. I am Ace Ramirez. A stretch of the 5 freeway that runs through Pacoima in San Fernando Valley, California, was named after late rocker Ritchie Valens. Eagle News correspondent RJ Rodriguez has the details.
From Pacoima, California, celebrating the life, the legacy, and the music of Ritchie Valens.
People have gathered at Ritchie Valens Park in Pacoima, California for the unveiling of his memorial highway. Free to the public, this event celebrates the music and legacy of Ritchie Valens with live entertainment, food trucks, and a showing of the movie La Bamba.
Letting that legacy of Ritchie Valens live on
Yes.
for the younger generation to know
Yes.
who Ritchie Valens was,
Yes,
the
it's
music,
important.
and what he did for music and
Yes.
for our people.
Yes, he's a pioneer.
Exactly, the pioneer of rock and roll. And
Yeah, Carlos Santana once told me and my sister that if it wasn't for Ritchie, he wouldn't be Carlos. He's a huge Ritchie Valens fan, huge, as is Bruno Mars.
Right.
You know what I mean? On Bruno's first CD, he talks about Richie.
Well, they said when Richie performed, you guys can attest, he performed with a lot of soul and just passion.
Passion. He was driven. He was driven by his music.
A rising star whose life was cut short by a tragic plane crash in 1959, the impact of his musical talent continues to inspire fans of rock and roll.
What inspired you to have this event?
Well, Richie Valens is a very important part of our community. He's a tremendous source of pride. And for me, I want to create opportunities for our community to come together and celebrate in such a positive way and commemorate and, really celebrate an individual who has left such an incredible legacy for generations.
Right behind us is the unveiling of the Richie Valens Memorial Highway. Oh, this is actually history in the making that we just experienced today. Music from 1959. How did you feel about this?
We're very happy. It feels so great that we have witnessed this history.
Yes, I am RJ Rodriguez.
Celeste Rodriguez.
And we are 1 with 25.
Thank you, RJ. Valens popularized the songs La Bamba and Cry, 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 among many others. That is today's Eagle News, Washington, D.C. Join us tomorrow for stories that matter to you. Visit our websites at eaglenews.ph and eaglenewslive.com. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at twitter.com/eaglenewsph. Thank you for watching. I'm Ace Ramirez, a 1 with 25.